Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Nazir daf Yud. We're going to begin on Yud Amud Aleph by the Mishnah. Masnisan Omer, if a person says the Amr Para, that this is what the cow was saying, which of course this is not really the meaning behind it, but just to understand the simple reading of this Mishnah, he's saying that Amr Parazu Hareini Nazira, I'll be a Nazir, Im Omedes Ani, if I will stand up. Or Omer Hadelas, that the door is speaking. Obviously, the door is not speaking. The cow wasn't speaking, but we have to understand this. Hadelas says, Hareini Nazir, I'll be a Nazir, Im Niftach Ani, if I open up, if the door opens up. Beishami Amrim Nazir, Beisal Amrim Enu Nazir. Obviously, this Mishnah needs a lot of work, which we're going to see in the Gemara. So, if we look in the Mefarish, he already explains what's going to be seen in the Gemara. But he says, Beishami Lashitasin, Diamar Ki Amrim in Gregris Havi Nazir. As we saw in yesterday's daf, if a person says, I'm a Nazir, and then he says from Gregris, from dried figs, dried dates, which obviously you can't be a Nazir that way, because that has nothing to do with Nazirus. But nonetheless, Beis Shammai still says over that you're a Nazir. Why? Why does he say that? Because he holds that a person is not moitzi devar of vatolo. You're not going to say something for no reason. So we're typhus, the first thing that you said, you're a Nazir. And the fact that you said groigris, you're just being chayzer, you're trying to retract on your original Nazirus. But you can't do it because in she'il hekdesh. So says the Mefarish, Hachinam ki yomer hareini Nazir, once you say the words Harei Nazir, that statement, Havi Nazir, you're a Nazir, that's it. V'chi omer mibsara, and then you end up saying from the meat of this animal, so litshule kasi, you're trying to retract the in she'il b'Nazir. When it comes to Nazirus and hekdesh, you can't do that. Beisal Amri ki Amr Mivsar ki Gregris da Mivuli Havi Nazir. He says you're not a Nazir. And you skip down a few more lines. It says Havi Nazir de in Adamoitzi de Baravatala, Bechi Oimer Nasar Shule who de Asti in She'el ben Nazir. Okay. So that's basically the idea in this link. If we look at question 5, it says Ba'oid Beis Devarim Shen Nazir other than Gregris, what other situation should Nazmehem do me the Groigris Kamashmon Mastis and Havinazil Beis Shammai Elohain, a cow or the meat of a cow and the door. Okay. Again, we'll have to understand exactly what that means in greater length. But the Pashup shot is that this is similar to our Mishnah previously of Groigris. That once you say you're a Nazir, that's it. What you say afterwards, even if it's in order to retract, seemingly to retract, it doesn't matter. According to Beis Shammai. Okay. And then, like we saw in the previous Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda, Avkisham Rabbi Shammai, also when Beis Shammai said he's a Nazir, Lo Oimrim, we don't say that El Be'omer Hari Parazu Olai Carbon, Im Omedasi. It's only if he stipulated the language of carbon. And then once he said that, then already it will take upon itself the din of a valid nether. Okay. Or maybe a neder, he's not a nazir. Okay. So the Gemara asks the question, Para mika mishtoi? Can a cow talk? Obviously, it's a rhetorical question. So it cannot be, the Pashup shot is that a person says, oh, the cow said that I will become a nazir if I, the cow, stand up. So Amar Rami Bar Chama Hacha b'Maskina, what the Mishnah really means is like this. You have this cow, and it's lying down on the ground. It doesn't look like it's about to move anytime soon. V'yomer, and you say, Kisvuram parazu, that this cow is probably thinking, that I'm not getting up, I'm not moving. Right? It doesn't mean that the cow spoke, but this is me speaking and thinking this is probably the situation of this cow. Says the Mefarish, Ma machshava shahaitzi hakasav b'loshna mira kagoin v'derbe emes v'vavai. It just seems like that's probably the situation. The cow's lying down or remain lying down. Hareini Nazir mivsara, and therefore I'm going to tell you that if in fact I will become a Nazir from with its meat, if it stands up by itself. So But then all of a sudden could the cow stand up? V'holchu went on its way. So Beis Shammai shitas and Beis Hillel shitas. So Beis Shammai goes according to his shita. So person basically says, I will be a Nazir who will be separated from its meat if a cow gets up by herself. So Beis Shammai, Nazir. So as we said over there, he's considered to be a Nazir in that situation as well, because once you say you're a Nazir, that's it. Doesn't matter, even if you're talking about meat, which meat has nothing to do with being a Nazir. You're allowed to eat meat as a Nazir. It doesn't make any difference. It just seems that you're probably retracting, but we say ein moitze davar v'vatala, so the fact is you're a Nazir. Even though you mentioned meat, like why meat? So the focus is not on the cow. The focus is you're looking at the cow and you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to eat meat if it stands up. And it stands up. So it sounds like, oh, must be that I became a Nazir. You were a Nazir, right? But the reality is to talk about the meat. The meat has nothing to do with being a Nazir, but it doesn't make any difference because that's really a form of retraction. But we don't care the fact that you were trying to retract, because the reality is that once you're a Nazir, you're a Nazir, and you can't have it removed. Beis Hillel says no. He's not a Nazir. So Gemara says, okay, we already learned this. What's the difference? We're talking about Gregos or we're talking about meat. So Amarava Tarti Tlos. Sometimes we have 2 times, sometimes you have 3. No, it's possible they can be mentioned more than once. Tarti Tlos, 2 and 3. So that's okay. And there's a reason why all of them are mentioned. When it came to the Mishnah before, that he mentioned Grogus and Tvela, maybe only in that situation do we say that he's considered to be a Nazir, even though there's nothing wrong with eating dry figs and dry dates, but they're pretty comparable to grapes. It's a food. So Mishum de Machlifan Banavim, it's possible that you could confuse them. One is a fruit, the other one's a fruit. So you may confuse them, says the Mefarish, the Pira Bepera Mechalaf. You could make that mistake. V'islahu l'Beis Shammai the kinoi kin Nazirus Nazirus. So maybe the reason why he's a Nazir is because he's a little bit confused. That even though again most people would know that this is not part of Nazirus, but it's a fruit. So maybe, oh yeah, you're not allowed to eat fruit, right? So maybe he was not really retracting in that statement. Therefore, that's the reason why he's a Nazir. When it comes to meat, there's nothing to talk about. We know you're not allowed to eat fruit, grapes, but a person's not going to start thinking, oh, he can't even eat meat. So the fact that he said it probably shows that he really wishes to be retracted. Maybe we do say he's allowed to retract, and therefore it's not a Nazirus. Being mar basar hakahudi amr Beis Shammai habi Nazir. Why? Biv sara b'chamra, that you're a Nazir from meat and wine, which makes sense because those two things are staples. They go together. A lot of people have a nice steak and a cup of red wine. Says the Mefarish, the bisra b'chamra or chayhu di inchi di amri b'hadadi. They often eat wine and meat together. So even though meat certainly doesn't look like wine, but because they're together, you can think, oh, I'm not allowed to drink wine. Maybe I'm not allowed to eat meat either. It could be a possible mistake. But one's not going to make that mistake because when you're drinking wine, you're like, oh, I better have some dried figs with it. No. Maybe at least all these situations, they're food. Deles, to say something about a door, has nothing to do with anything. So he says, oh, I'm not going to use this door. What's that doing me a Nazir? So maybe he'll agree to Beis Hillel that it's nothing. Maybe only their Beis Hillel says it's nothing. That he argues in all these cases. So, according to this opinion, we're saying that this Mishnah is really similar to the Mishnah we had before. It's just a sricha, so we need all 3 different cases. Amar Rava. So Rava says, it sounds all good, but the problem is you're not staying true to the language of the Mishnah. Mikatani im omdam yolel. Does it say if it stands by itself? It doesn't say that. It says by a cow. It says, Amra parazu, hareini nazir im omedes. It doesn't say im if it stands up by itself. It doesn't say those words. The case is like this, that if you look at the Mefarish, im omedes stam kaimer ben ben it's mashma. It doesn't matter if it stands up by itself or with the assistance of others. And if you look at the Toysus, yeah, so my kashale mikatani meleha v'kama mishnayis the mishanina chasur mechsa v'hakatani. A lot of times there's just a couple words missing. Why is that such a big problem? Toysus asks, "Aviyesh loymar dehani melehech demucha hachisaron." Sometimes you're right, but it comes to strengthen it. It doesn't seem like it's missing something. So if a Mishnah, sometimes it has to be that chasur mechsera. Over here, it doesn't seem like it's really missing words. It's possible that it can be understood in a different way. If you look at the Rosh, he says, Umihu tema my parach v'ha'omer beishamai chada zimna hatuva itzrich hach the pari lashmiina dahavi nazir. You're a nazir afagav doloi hisker nazirus. You didn't mention nazirus. V'shema kashalo l'may hutzruchu beisil lachol kivan dahavi plukta deresha. Okay, so he says it doesn't say im meleha. That cow is crouching down. Carbon. And you say harley carbon. Now, bishlama para bas carboni. I can understand when it comes to that because you're saying a cow has shaychus to a cow, to what being a carbon, and therefore he could say that's what it's referring to. Eladelis bas carboni. You can't bring a door as a carbon. Maybe Shar Niknor. Okay. This is the case. You have the cow that's crouched down in front of you as we continue to Yudam and Beis. Hareini Nazir. First you say, I'm a Nazir miyayin. Im lo umda. If it doesn't stand up. This is what the person says. V'amda milel. And then all of a sudden the animal stands up by itself. So you said, I will be a Nazir if it doesn't stand up. Which is mashma, that if it does stand up, maybe that's it. Maybe you won't be a Nazir. So Beis Shammai says, no, you're still a Nazir. Why? Samri torfe dehai gavra, if we understand the meaning of his words, mishum ukma biyadehu, because it's something which is in his hands. V'halo ukma, but he himself didn't lift the animal up. In other words, he's basically saying, if I don't accompany the animal by lifting it up, then it won't be a Nazir. But if it, which is mashma, if it got up by itself, then it will be a Nazir. Beisol Savri Mishum Duraviahu, since it's lying down, Vokamt, and it got up. Okay. So, in other words, the person says, I'll be a Nazir from the meat if I don't get you up. And the cow got up by itself. Right? Got up by itself. But I said that I will be a Nazir if I don't get you up. So, according to Beis Shammai, yeah, you didn't get him up. It got up by itself. And since you didn't get her up, so you're a Nazir. Beis Hillel says, no, the cow did end up getting up, so therefore you're still a Nazir, even though you didn't assist it. Okay. So, question 6. So he says, Beis Shammai holds, he's saying that if I do not assist the cow, that I will get the cow up myself, and I didn't assist him, so if I do not help the animal up myself, in other words, if the animal goes up by itself, by its own, then I'll be a Nazir. Beis Hillel says no. The imo tamoid komakim kaimer v'hari amda. When you say lo samoid, it has to do with whether the animal will get up or not. And since the animal did get up, so therefore you're not a Nazir. So that's the idea behind this. Okay. And I think the next two questions are almost verbatim, but we'll see them after we finish the Almud. So Yehachi am a Seifa. Amr Behuda Afkisher Beis Shammai, even according to Beis Shammai. that says that lo omer el b'omer harihino like carbon para. It's only when you bring a carbon. So para mika matvis b'midi. So understand how there's no hatfasa when it comes to this. Elo kagoyin de omer harini nazir mivsara. It has to be on its meat, as we said before. Imu amda, if it doesn't stand up, the amda malaha, it stood by itself. Meishami savri turfi dehu gavra mishum ukme biyade. Who the whole point was in the meaning of his words is that the animal's not going to get up. That you're not going to help him get up. And since you didn't help him get up, so there you're a Nazir. The meaning of this person is it's because you're lying down and the animal gets up. So it doesn't make any difference whether it got up on its own or with you. The fact that it got up on its own, so therefore you're not going to be a Nazir. If you doesn't get up, havi Nazir. I'm Nazir. So the time of the Beishami Kamri, what he done, if you little count, even if it doesn't get up, Nami will have Nazir. It's still not going to be a Nazir. However, so at least agree the turfid the hadin gavra, the intention of this person is shum the revia, the fact that it's lying down. But count, and since it did get up, so he's not a Nazir. Mishamai will say love turfid the high gavra mishum ukma. Biyade has to do with him physically lifting up the animal who Vahalu Ukmi, and since he did not lift it up, therefore he will be a Nazir. We're going to stop there, but let's see these two questions, which I think are maybe identical. TA 15. Haisapar Ravutsa Vyomer Hareni Nazir Mivsara Imo Umda Mialeha, and it stands up on its own, right? On its own. So the question is, Beis Hill Oimrim Einu Nazir. So why does Beis Hill say he's not a Nazir? Question 15. So either Mishum Tishischaven Im Lo Tamoid Klal. That's not going to stand up. Bahari Umdid, it did. Or Mishum the Omer Hareni Nazir Mivsara Havile Kin Nazir Minigrigris. So as we said before, that has the same status as being a Nazir Minigrigris, and therefore we say that he's retracting. And as he's retracting, he there is she'ela when it comes to hektish, and therefore for that reason, it's a form of retraction. Therefore, he's not a nazir. Okay, TB 16. Hareni nazir meyayin imu amda apar be'amda miyoleha ma'adinu ma'atam. So again, it's obviously ma'chlokas. Beishami says you're a nazir. Kavanasoi imu yamidu b'kayach. You don't lift them up with your own strength. It got up, but on its own. Beis Hill ends in nos that the kavanos imul umda klal. If it doesn't get up, since it did get up, therefore you're not going to be a nazir. Ad kan.